Today's shiur will begin at the very bottom line of Daf Kuf Ches Omid Beis at the Mishnah. Before we begin the Mishnah, we glance at the side where we have a topic heading which will help lead us into the discussion in the Mishnah. We've written on the side, Giresh es ishto vechazira, a person who had divorced his wife and then took her back, v'achar kach meis b'lo bonim, and then he died without children. Muteres layovam, she is allowed to marry the yavam. V'Rabbi Elazar Ozer, and Rabbi Ozer disagrees. He says not so. So as far as the Tanakama is concerned, we see that the heter of Yibum is evaluated at the time of the husband's death, and not in terms of what had happened previously. If you were to look at the previous record, you would notice that this woman had been divorced, and a woman divorced from one's brother is strictly forbidden. Nevertheless, we don't look at that in determining whether she's fit for Yibum, but rather we look at the state of matters at the time of death. And at the time of death, she was married to this particular man, and hence the surviving brother is eligible to marry her. As we said, Rabbi Ozer, we'll see in the Mishnah, disagrees. Now we turn to the Mishnah. Hamagaresh es ishto vechazira, muteres leyavam. The man who divorced his wife but took her back, upon his death, if he has no children, she can marry the brother-in-law, the yavam. We continue at the top of Kuf Tes Amud Aleph, Rabbi Elazar Ozer. V'chein hamegarish es hayesoima v'hechzira. Likewise, a person who had been married to a minor and divorced her, but then took her back, when this husband dies, muteres leyavam. For Rabbi Elazar Ozer, once again, Rabbi Elazar forbids. Ketano shesiovia v'nisgarsha, a girl who was married off by her father. That is a marriage that is sanctioned by the Torah. So, though she's a minor, she's considered fully married to the husband when the girl was married off by her father. And then she was divorced. We categorize her kiyasoima b'chay ho'av. She is considered orphaned, halachically speaking. The father is alive, but the father has no more jurisdiction over her in terms of marriage. So she's categorized as a yasoima, as an orphan during the lifetime of her father. V'chzira. Then the man took her back. The husband took her back. Divrei hakol asur liyavam. Everyone will agree that she is forbidden to Yibum. Now, you'll ask, why is that? Well, as far as her status as a divorcee, that is a Torah level. That's doraisa. She was divorced in a complete form of divorce. So she is a grusha from this man on a Torah level. On a rabbinic level, she was remarried by him. But the rabbinic level of marriage, it does not overrule the Torah status of being a divorcee. Hence, the man, the husband, when he dies, even though he had taken her back, when he dies, the brother cannot marry her because she is left with the label of grushas ochav, of being a divorcee from the brother. And a grusha obviously does not do yibum. The Gemara. We see in the Gemara a new marking. We have on the side the nosei mivneh heading, where we have a topic heading and structural note combined into one, and we have a house shape that is going to appear in the Gemara. These are Deos lahasbir taimos Rabbi Elazar diomar b'mishneh. These are different opinions to explain Rabbi Elazar, who had said in the Mishnah, Magarish eso isha v'chzira umeis bli bonim asura leyavam. We want to explain Shita Rabbi Elazar, who, as we saw in the Mishnah, forbids the woman who was divorced, though taken back by the original husband, to do yibum. The Gemara. Omar Efa, this is a name, Efa. My Taima de Rebbe Elazar. Why is it that Rebbe Elazar forbids the yibum of such a woman? Answer, because there was a time that she had been forbidden to the surviving brother. What was at that time? When the brother, if you want to use names, Ruvain is married to a woman, and eventually Ruvain dies, and Shimon will be the Yavam. But since Ruvain had divorced her at a certain point, that creates a label of prohibition upon her vis-a-vis Shimon, the surviving brother. Omru le Rabbanan le Efa. The Rabbanan said, according to your analysis, that she was sha'achas be'isr ihachi chalitza nami lo tiboy. A woman like that shouldn't require even chalitza. She should simply be viewed as a forbidden woman. And if you try to argue that's right, there's no need for chalitza either, that's not true. V'atanya mishum Rebbe Ozer, in the name of Rebbe Ozer, and this is dashed underlined because we're focusing on this Tana right now. In the name of Rebbe Ozer, it was said choletzes, that she does do chalitza. Elo Omar Efa Rebbe Ozer lo yodana my taimo. I don't know what his reason is. I don't know why he says no yibum, but yes chalitza. Omar Abaye, Hainu Taimo the Rebbe Ozer, Misafkale, Misa Mapelas Nisuin Horishonim Mapilim. According to Abaye, the Tana Rebbe Ozer is in doubt whether Mapelas literally means to fall or to be cast, and to be cast to Yibum. So we are in doubt. Rebbe Ozer is in doubt, that is. He himself is in doubt whether the eligibility for Yibum is established at the time of death, or the original marriage is what determines things. And the Gemara expounds on this. If you say that death, the point of death is the point at which we evaluate eligibility, then she is in front of him, she is available for Ibum, because at the point of the husband's death you had a couple that was married, totally married, and he died, the husband died without children. That's reason for Ibum. However, if however you start evaluating eligibility from the point of the original marriage, there was a time at which the label of prohibition was attached, namely at the point that she had been divorced. So there was an original marriage that resulted in divorce. The fact that she's taken back afterwards is not as if the clock restarts. Rava Omar L'oilam Pshita Rebbe Elazar de Misa Mapelas. As far as Rava is concerned, the Tana Rebbe Elazar is sure that evaluation of Yibum eligibility is based on time of death, and that's reason to allow Yibum. Umiu, however, there's an additional consideration. Hakoil Bekiyin Begerishin Vein Hakol Bekiyin Bechazora. Gerushin, divorce, is something that is known to everybody. The entire community knows she was divorced. However, not everyone will know that he took her back. So they look at her as a divorcee of Ruvain. If Shimon were to marry her, they're not going to know that Shimon is marrying her as a result of Ruvain having remarried her. And people will think that Yibum can be done, or marriage can be done between a woman and the husband's brother, what we call Grushas Ochiv, a woman divorced from one can be married by the other, and that's of course a major prohibition. So the analysis for Rebbe Ozer is based on this consideration about the public's level of awareness. The Gemara says in response, Adarabba, to the contrary, Chazora, as far as the remarriage is concerned, Kivan the Yasva, to say, since at the time the man dies, she's living with him. Is le kola, that creates public awareness. A kol means a sound, awareness. So how can you argue that the gerushin is that which is well known? If anything, the remarriage is well known. The Gemara says not so, because we have to consider a specific situation, a specific scenario. Mi lo askinon, are we not in fact dealing with a case tahadra be'urta v'shacha b'tzafra, that when we speak about a man remarrying her, yeah, he remarried her in the evening and by the next morning he was already dead. Whereas we have to consider a case like that. So in a situation like that, not everyone will know about the man having remarried his divorcee. Rav Ashi Omar Hainu Taimo the Rebbe Elazar. The Gozar Hani, Rebbe Ozer feels that all cases of a man remarrying his wife, one has to consider those cases being confused with the following: Mishum Yesoima b'chaye ho'av v'hechzira. Now this was the last case we saw in the Mishnah. You can see it on the third, fourth line from the top. We learned it in the Mishnah that a girl who was married off by her father, so that is a Torah level marriage. The husband divorces her. If the husband divorces her, that's a Torah level divorce. When that man remarries her, that is called a rabbinic level marriage. There's no question in anyone's mind that when a man like that dies, leaving the widow, who's essentially rabbinically speaking a widow, because on a Torah level she's really his divorcee. So on a Torah level she cannot do yibum. So that particular case involved a divorce and then a subsequent remarriage, but that remarriage will not result in yibum. It will be prohibited to do yibum. Therefore, all other cases where, though the remarriage was also on a Torah level, we cannot allow yibum, because if we are allowed to, if we were to allow yibum in the other cases, the cases that we've discussed till now involving a machzir kushasai, if we allow yibum there, we'll end up allowing yibum in this case of yesoima b'chayoav. And therefore, Rebbe Ozer takes this strict approach across the boards, prohibiting yibum in all cases of machzir gushaso. Hachi nami mistabra. This analysis is also likely, is also logical. The katani seifa, because the seifa of our Mishnah spells out that particular case. Ketanish siyavia v'nisgarsha kiyasam b'chayav. The minor who was married off by her father and then divorced, she's considered a yesoima b'chayav. That's a legal category. V'chzira, and then the original husband takes her back. Divrei hakol shasru li'ovam. Everyone will agree, even the Rabbanan will agree that she cannot do yibum. Hi, my lamemra. This last case of Mishnah, what's the purpose in teaching it? Shlita, is it not obvious? In other words, the whole analysis that we gave is something that anyone could figure out, that you have a doraisa level divorce and the subsequent remarriage is purely rabbinic. So then it's obvious that she cannot do yibum. Elolaf, so why was it taught in the Mishnah? Ha komash malon. The reason that this obvious case appears in the Mishnah is to tell us the following. Taima de Rebbe Ozer, the gozar hanoch mishum hai. The basis of Rebbe Ozer was he ruled out, he forbids yibum in all the other cases because of this case, in anticipation of this case. Shma mino. So this is conclusive evidence that Rav Ashi's explanation for Rebbe Ozer is the way to go. Tanyo kavose the Rav Ashi. Now we have a Tanaic source that supports Rav Ashi. Moidim chacham Rebbe Ozer. The Chomim concede to Rebbe Ozer b'ktana shesiyav and his gasha arei kisum v'chayav yichzira shasru liyavam. a minor that was married off by her father, subsequently divorced, and then taken back, she is also to the Yavam. Everyone agrees, even the Chachamim, as you can see, they concede to Rebbe Ozer, because her divorce is a full-fledged divorce, and her remarriage is not a full-fledged remarriage. It's a rabbinic level remarriage, because once the girl was divorced, the father loses control over her in marital terms, and therefore any remarriage that she experiences is on a rabbinic level, because you're dealing with a minor. When is this the case? When she was divorced as a minor and remarried as a minor. If he divorced her when she was still under 12, but he took her back, he remarried her after 12 and after adulthood, or he in fact remarried her when she was still a minor. However, she continued living with him until she reached adulthood, and then the husband died. Both options are open in that case, because the remarriage gains a rabbinic, a Torah level status. That is as far as the Chachomim are concerned. Mishum Rebbe Ozer Amru, in the name of Rebbe Ozer, it was said, Chayletzes veloy misyabemes, that the only option available even in that case is chalitza, no yibum. If we look in the Rashi a few lines down from here, Mishum Rebbe Ozer Amru, Umidikotoni Liel, from the fact that this source opened up by saying Umoidim Chachomim Rebbe Ozer b'Yisrael Chayav, that the Chomim concede to Rebbe Ozer in that specific case, Almo Airi Bo Rebbe Ozer. That shows us that Rebbe Ozer Rebbe Ozer deals with that case. He speaks about that case. The Taimo the Bacharnaisa Mishum Ha, that in fact the Rebbe Ozer's opinion about the other cases of Machzir Gushaso and the exclusion of Yibum is a result of this case of Ketana Shesiaviv V'Nizgasha. On the side we have a Tatnosei, a sub-topic heading, Ma Dino Shel Tsoras Hamuchzeres Aliba the Rebbe Ozer. Up till now, Rebbe Ozer spoke about the case of Ruvain having divorced one of his wives and then taking her back. According to Rebbe Ozer, when Ruvain dies leaving no children, so the woman who he had divorced and then taken back is prohibited in Yibum. This Gemara will deal with a case where that very Ruvain happens to have another wife. She's the co-wife of a woman who had been divorced by that very same husband and then taken back. As far as the co-wife is concerned, she had a stable married life with Ruvain the whole time. But she is a co-wife of a woman that is prohibited in Yibum according to Rebbe Ozer. So what is the din when Ruvain dies leaving no children regarding the tzara, the co-wife? Bo'minei Rava Meirav Nachman. Rava asks, according to the Tana Rebbe Ozer, he asks Rav Nachman Sarasa Mao, what is the status of the co-wife? Of the co-wife of course, we're talking about the woman who had been divorced and then remarried, and she is a gedola. What is the din of the co-wife? Omar Leis, Rav Nachman responds, he gufa gzera, the case of the gedola that was remarried, and her prohibition in Yibum is itself a gezerah. It itself is not letter of the law. It was anticipation of the Soyme B'chayav case. So the Muchzeres Gedola is itself a gezerah, a rabbinic restriction. We're going to now arise and impose an additional prohibition, namely to prohibit the tzora in anticipation of marriage with the Muchzeres herself. We wouldn't do that because the muchzeres herself is only prohibited on a rabbinic level, and we do not formulate halacha in such a fashion where we make a gezerah upon a gezerah. The Gemara asks, "V'hatanya mishum Reb Ozer omru hi v'tzorasa choletzes." We have in the name of Reb Ozer, it says she and the co-wife do chalitza. The Gemara says that the source we just read is inaccurate. He vitzarasa salka daitach. There's no need for two Yevamos to do chalitza. Chalitza is done by one of the wives, and that exempts the others. So the source as it is not accurate. Elolav, rather it must be oihi oitzarasa choletzes. If anything, it's going to mean or this one or that one. So, being that we're already doctoring up the source, lav terutzi kometartzis, have you not had to straighten out the original source anyway? Tritzachi, read it as follows, like Rav Nachman. He choletzis, the muchzeres, the woman who had been divorced and then remarried, so she will do chalitza. Sarasa, the co-wife, in other words, regarding the co-wife, there is a yibum option. The Rashi says, he choletzes. We're looking at Rashi toward the end of the narrow lines. Im bo yavam lizokek law, if the yavam wants to connect with her, choletzes upoteres sorasa v'lo misyabemes. She will do chalitza, and that will exempt the co-wife, and there will be no yibum. Aval im nizkak l'tzorasa, if, however, he approaches the co-wife, then oichai letzes omes yabemes v'hi nifteres, that will be effective either through chalitza or yibum in releasing the muchzeres. Now, we have a new Mishnah. Before we read the Mishnah, we'll just note that we have a double underlining marking, and on the side, the double underlining highlights the case of shtei achoyos, two sisters that we will discover are married to two brothers. The cases are shteihen ktanos, the two sisters are minors, or you have a case of achas gedolah v'achas ktam. When we speak about minors, unless otherwise specified, it's a case of a rabbinic marriage. It's a girl who was married off by her mother or brother, not by her father. Now the Mishnah. Shnei achim nisuim. Two brothers are married. L'shtei achoyos ktanos. There's a girsa yisoimos ktanos, to two sisters that are minors, and hence the bond, the marital bond, is a rabbinic bond. Umeis bailo shel achas man. One of the brothers died. Halazu teitze mishum achos isha. The widow cannot be married by the surviving brother because the widow is the sister of his wife. Gedolo ktana. Two brothers are married to two sisters. However, one is an adult and one is a minor. The marriage between the fellow and the gedola is a Torah level marriage, and any yibum bond that would be formed would be a Torah level zika. The marriage between the other brother and the ketana is a rabbinic level marriage. Meis bailo shoktana. If the husband of the minor dies, so teitzak tana mishum achos isha, the tana is not going to participate in yibum because her adult sister is married on a Torah level to the surviving brother. So the mitzvah of yibum doesn't apply here because you're dealing with a forbidden relationship, the sister of one's wife. Meis bailo shel gedola. Now here you have the opposite situation where the husband of the adult sister dies, and now there remains the brother who was married to the Ketana. Rebbe Eliezer or Rebbe Ozer Omer Melamdim es Ketana shetemoin bo. We instruct the minor who is married to the surviving brother to do miyun, and by doing miyun is an instrument of departure from marriage when the marriage was of a rabbinic nature with a minor. She walks out through miyun, which we discussed extensively in our recent shiurim, and with that done, it uproots the marriage, this rabbinic marriage, from the root. It uproots it from the outset retroactively, and therefore the surviving brother can marry the Yevamos, the Gedola. Rabban Gamliel Omer, im miano, if she does that, then fine. V'im lav, if she doesn't do miyun, tamtinat shetagdil, she can stay with her husband until she becomes an adult, at which point the marriage would become a Torah level marriage. V'teitze halazu mishum achosisha, and then the Gedola would be exempt from mibum on the grounds that she is the sister of the man's wife. There is a Rashi that we'd like to look at, Rabban Gamliel Omer. We look at the Rashi on the third wide line under the Gemara text. Ein zikosa oiseres ezu. The fact that the Ketana is married to a man who is experiencing a yibum zika, connection to her adult sister, that does not prevent the man from continuing to live with the minor. The zika, the bond between the man and her older sister, does not prevent the younger sister from living with her husband. The Rabban Gamliel Sover, Ein Zika. Rabban Gamliel is of the opinion that there is no Zika. Klomar, this means to say, Lo Alima Zika. The bond is not strong. It's a weak connection. As was explained earlier in the Masechta Hilchach. Im mi'ano, if the Ketana does miyun, fine. V'tisyabeim gedola, then he can marry the adult sister who's a widow. V'im lav, if the Ketana doesn't do miyun, tamtin Ketana etzlo, the minor wife will stay with her husband until she becomes an adult, thereby concretizing the marriage into a full-fledged marriage. And the adult widow will be exempt on the grounds that she is the sister of the surviving brother's wife. But chalitza done with the gedola is out of the question. If he does that, the posal es haktana olav mishum achois chalutza. If the surviving brother who's married to the minor opts to do chalitza with the gedola, that will make his own wife, the ketana, forbidden to him on the grounds that she is the sister of the chalutza. We go back to the Mishnah. Rabbi Yoshua Oimer, Oy loy al ishto, or a lo al ishto. It's like saying Oy. A loy al eshes ochiv. It's a double loss. Motzi es ishto beget. The opinion of Rabbi Yeshua is such that he doesn't believe in training her, teaching her to do miyun. This is a point that we'll see later in the Gemara, that one should avoid miyun. Now, the minor is not going to continue living with her husband when her elder sister is currently the Yevamos. He is of the opinion, that is, Rabbi Yeshua is of the opinion that there is Zika, and that the Zika prevents the surviving brother who's married to the minor continuing with his wife. The Zika of the older sister, the adult sister, prohibits then, as we said, the man continuing with the minor wife, so he divorces her with a get. Ve'eshes achiv b'chalitza, and the adult sister will be released through chalitza. Not yibum. Yibum cannot be done because she, the adult sister, who is a widow, happens to be the sister of this man's grusha. So you can't marry the sister of a woman you divorced. So he loses both women, according to Rabbi Yeshua. The Gemara asks, Umi Shari, is it mutter to train or to teach a minor to do miyun? V'ha tani bar kapora. Bar kapora has the following teaching: Li'olam yidbak odam b'shloishet dvarim v'yisrachek mishloishet dvarim. Person should cleave unto 3 elements and distance himself from 3. Yidbak b'shloishet dvarim b'chalitza ubavoas shalom ubaforas nadarim. One should pursue chalitza. He should pursue peace amongst people, and he should practice the absolution or the nullification of vows. Distance yourself from min hamiyun. That's our topic, and hence we underline that. Umin hapikdoinos, from taking items for guarding, and umin ha'ervonos, and avoid being a co-signer or a guarantor of someone's loan. So our question is raised: how can our Mishnah say Malamden esaktana to do miyun when you see miyun is to be avoided? The Gemara answers, miyun de mitzvah shiny. When the miyun is in the context of doing a mitzvah, that through the miyun we'll be able to perform a mitzvah, as is the case over here to enable yibum with the gedolah. So that's different, and in such a situation we will pursue miyun. The note on the side, we have a topic heading no semivneh, and you'll see a diamond is used. Yidbak begimel dvarim. We highlight the 3 things that one should cleave unto, and we'll explain them as we go along in the Gemara. So we're going to highlight the case of chalitza, havoas shalom, and haforas nedarim. On Amud Beis, the Gemara will make reference to the things that a person should avoid. So in the meantime, Gufa indicates a quote of that which was mentioned in passing before. Tani bar kapara li'olam yidbak odam b'shloishet dvarim. Number 1, b'chalitza kabashol. This approach is based on the philosophy or the attitude of Abba Shol when it comes to Yibum versus Chalitza. Choose Chalitza. Desanya Abba Shol Omer Hakenis is Yivimto L'Shem Noi. The person marries the widow of his brother because of her beauty, L'Shem Ishus, for the purpose of having a wife, L'Shem Dovar Acher, or for some other reason other than the pure intention of reestablishing his brother's name. Ki'ilu pogea be'erva, the korov be'enai liyos havlad mamzer. It's as if, now it's not literal, but it's as if he is cohabiting with a prohibited woman. After all, if you don't have the right intention, says Abba Shol, it's as if you're marrying your brother's wife. That's Eishes Achiv, which is a forbidden relative. And it's close, in my mind, says Abba Shol, that the children will be illegitimate. So Abba Shol has a very harsh view regarding those who would pursue Yibum with anything other than the purest of intentions. And since we can assume that most people aren't going to have the very pure intention of being boinus shem achiv, reestablishing his brother's name, so it's better to avoid it and opt for chalitza. B'havoas shalom, one should pursue establishing camaraderie, harmony amongst people. Dichtiv b'kei shalom v'rodfehu, seek out peace and pursue it. We continue at the top of Omid Beis. V'Omar Rabbi Abo, Asya Redifa. We're going to employ a word connection, a similarity of expressions. The Rashi at the top line, Asya Redifa Tashlum Sachar Godol Lavua Shalom Shecha Perasim Lamazev Akeren Kemis Lo Lamabo. There is great reward for people who pursue peace, who pursue establishing harmony amongst people, whereby you benefit from the fruits in this world, and the principal reward remains to the world to come. Like we find by people who pursue acts of loving kindness, which is ba'olam haba, v'chavod ba'olam hazeh. So now we continue with Rabbi Avo's insight. Ksiv hacha ba'kei shalom f'rofeu, the pasuk we just saw at the bottom of Amud Aleph. Ksiv hasam, regarding Gemilas Chasodim, it says roidef Stoka v'chesed yimso chayim stoka v'kavod. And as we saw in Rashi, you see an allusion in this pasuk to reward in olam hazeh. That's yimso chayim stoka, and kavod is, I should say, in the other way around. Yimso chayim stoka is in olam haba, and kavod is in olam hazeh. Ba'foras nidorim. One should pursue that, the nullification of vows. Kerebi Nosan, based on Rabbi Nosan's approach. Desanya, Rabbi Nosan Omer, a noider, one who vows ki'ilu bona boma. It's as if he built an altar during the Zman, the period of Easter Bomas. There's a prohibition of building altars, personal altars, when the Beis Hamikdash is standing, and from the building of the Beis Hamikdash for eternity, Jews are not allowed to have personal altars. So there's an Easter in Boma. So one who takes a vow, one who vows, it's as if he is establishing a personal altar. V'mekaima, one who fulfills the vow, ki l'hikriv oleh korban. It's viewed as if he's then offering a sacrifice on the forbidden altar. So that even though one who vows is expected to fulfill his vow, in the opinion of Rabbi Nosan, the whole deal is reprehensible. And here we have a series of triangles to highlight the three elements that Bar Kappara said to avoid. The first is min ha-mi'unin, to avoid mi'un. Dilma godla u'michrita ba. She might grow to become adult and regret that she did mi'un. So we don't want to create situations where one will likely come to regret. There is probably more to say on this topic, but for our purposes, you'll notice that Rashi is silent, and hence the good advice of Bar Kappara can be taken at face value as well, not to do things that you might come to regret. Min hapikdoinos, the idea of not taking articles to then serve as a watchman over them. This idea is, and we say don't take things. That's bebar masa. We're specifically a person who lives in your own town. The baisei ki baisei domi. In the eyes of your neighbors, your house is like their house to them. People feel very comfortable walking into your house. They're neighbors that just walk right into your house, and the fear is that he'll walk into your house one day and take his item, and then claim, "Hey, give me the item I gave you," when he had already taken it back. So all of this is a scenario that could arise when you're dealing with people from your own community. As we said, people can stroll into your house even uninvited because they view your house as theirs. Min ha'eravon. One should avoid being the guarantor of loans, but that's limited. Be'arvei shaltzion. There are two expressions in Rashi. So what shaltzion means is the name of a place. That's Rashi says Shaltzion Shem Mokum Shemanichim Aloiva V'Teivs Morev. In that location, when creditor comes to collect his loan, he doesn't even go to the borrower, he goes right to the guarantor. So you don't want to be in that position. You didn't borrow the money, you simply guaranteed the loan for someone else, and yet you're going to be the one that's going to have to pay up the loan. Afterwards you'll have to break your head to go get the money from the original borrower. So avoid being a guarantor of loans in that community. As we said, Rashi has another explanation as to what Shaltzion is, but we'll continue in our Gemara. The Omar Rabbi Yitzchak, Mai Dichtiv, Ra Yeroa Ki HaRav Ozer. That's it, pasuk. Ra Acharo Tavo Lemekabli Gerim L'Arvei Shaltzion Utkei Atzmo L'Dvar Halacha. There are 3 points that are mentioned in this analysis, but we underline that which is of immediate importance to us. Then the pasuk is saying that evil after evil will befall those people who are accepting of converts, who are co-signers or guarantors of loans, and who is tokeh atzmo l'dvar halacha. Now, these points will be described as we go on in the Gemara. Mekable gerim, the idea of trying to avoid, and you'll notice that we have the double underline to highlight each one of these elements to avoid being a receiver of converts. In other words, don't engage in converting people to Judaism. Rabbi Chelbo, based on Rabbi Chelbo's teaching, Rabbi Chelbo, Koshim Gerim Yisrael Kesapachas Ba'or. The presence of converts amongst the Jewish people is as difficult, is as problematic as sapachas is a form of tzoras, of ritual defilement, whereby there is a skin discoloring, and there's often great pain with that as well. So you'll ask, what is the problem with accepting converts? After all, the Torah goes out of its way to insist on the proper respect and love to be shown to converts. In fact, it says, "V'haftem es hager," you shall love the convert. But we don't seek out converts, and that's what we are talking about here. And what is the problem that they represent? So there are numerous explanations, and you can see the various commentaries elaborating on that. But amongst the different comments, one of them happens to be an interesting comment that Gerim, converts, actually are many times are more diligent in their mitzvah performance, and that makes the traditional born Jews puts them in a bad light. Here you have someone who's coming from the outside and is being very diligent and dedicated to mitzvah performance, and those people who have the merit of being born as Jews aren't in the same class. So, as we said, as Rabbi Chelbo says, that's a difficulty for the Jews having converts in their midst. But again, that has nothing to do with the way we're supposed to treat someone who has converted. We are to bestow upon them the utmost respect and admiration for having chosen Judaism, which represents absolute truth through the Torah of our people. So with that in mind, we continue with the next element that this pasuk was teaching. Ra Yeroa is Arvei Shaltzion, the Avdi Shloif Doitz. Shlof is to remove oneself. The creditor removes himself from the loveh, and Dotz, he attaches himself to the guarantor. And as a result, if you guarantee a loan, you're going to be the one that's going to have to pay it up. And as far as collecting your money that you paid out for the other guy's loan, so you have to trouble yourself to get compensation for that. Then we have Tokea Atzmo L'Dvar Halacha. Structurally, you can see we've double underlined this as one of the three things that the pasuk Ra Yeroa HaRav Ozer was referring to. As far as what is that, so we have a bow tie shape introducing the two pshatim, two explanations as to what that is. So you notice one is over here, and a little about halfway down the page you'll see a number 2. Desanya. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Kol Omer Ein Lo Torah, Ein Lo Torah. That's a Tanaic source, but it's very obscure. Anyone who says Ein Lo Torah, that I don't study Torah, so he doesn't get reward for studying Torah. Pshita, that's obvious. If you don't study Torah, I can expect to receive reward for studying Torah. Ella Kol Omer Ein Lo Ella Torah, Ein Lo Ella Torah. Someone who says, I only study Torah and I don't perform the mitzvahs. I might learn about the mitzvahs, but I'm not mekayim the mitzvahs. So we say that he doesn't get reward for the mitzvahs. Honami pshita, but that too is obvious. If a person claims that he only studies Torah, doesn't fulfill the mitzvahs, so obviously he's not going to get reward for mitzvah fulfillment. Ella, so more accurately, rather, what should be the explanation? Dafilu Torah ein lo. He does study Torah, but he doesn't fulfill that which he studies. So we say, you're not going to get reward even for the Torah that you studied. You're not even going to get study reward. My time, Why is it that he loses everything? It's understandable that he doesn't get reward for mitzvah fulfillment that he hasn't done, but he did study. So we say that if you study and don't fulfill mitzvahs, you don't get reward even for the study of Torah. And why is that? Omar Papa, Omar Kra, Ulamadatem oisam ushmartem lasoisam. And we darshan from this pasuk, Kol sheyeshno ba'asiyah yeshno b'limida. Anyone who is involved in the performance, so he gets reward for the study of it. Kol she'eino ba'asiyah, anyone who is not involved in the performance of the teachings of the Torah, eino b'limida, he doesn't get reward even for the study, though he did study. V'boy seima li'olam kidamrisu me'kora. Another approach is in fact to go back to what we said at the beginning of this section. Kol ha'omer ein loy ela Torah, ein lo ela Torah. Someone who says, I don't perform the mitzvahs, I only study Torah. So we say he'll get reward for just the study and not for the performance. You'll ask, well, isn't that obvious? Lo, sricha, no, it is necessary to call migmar lachrini, v'azli v'avdi. We're dealing with a person that studies Torah and teaches the Torah that he studied to others. And the others, upon hearing his Torah lectures, they go and perform the mitzvahs. Mal detemo is le agro l'didei. You might have thought, since the others are performing mitzvahs based on the Torah that you taught them, so their reward is applied to you as well. Komash Malon, so we're taught not so. Even though you might be responsible for other people performing the mitzvahs, if you yourself don't perform the mitzvahs, you're not going to get reward. Another approach to what that means, a person who is a judge who has a case that's brought in front of him, and he has learned, he knows halacha. Now here we have a Rashi that helps to clarify this case. Rashi says, "V'gomer halacha, yodea halacha, elo she'ein doime l'din haba lefonav." He knows laws, but it's not the same thing. That which he knows is not the same as the case in front of him. Let's read that again. Elo she'ein doime l'din haba lefonav kol kach. Umedami milsa lemilsa. It's not exactly that which he knows is not exactly the same as the case in front of him, and yet he goes ahead and compares one to the other. V'lomashil rabbe, and he doesn't consult with his teacher. V'hainu tokea shesoymech v'nishan halacha shu yodea. This is Tokeh Halacha means to, in this context, means to rely upon that which he himself knows and goes ahead and rules accordingly without consulting with a higher authority that is in his vicinity. Now we go back to the Gemara, and we said that Tokem Atzim Var Halacha is B'day Dos Adino L'Kamei V'Gomer Halacha U'Medami Milsa L'Milsa U'V'Islei Rabo V'Lo Ozu Mashal. He Medami Milsa L'Milsa means he compares that which he knows to the case that came in front of him, and he has a means of clarifying with a higher authority. Though he has a Rav in his town, and he doesn't go and ask of him, he doesn't consult with him. Diomar Rabbi Shmuel Barachmenium Rabbi Yonasan Berger Yira Dayan Atzmo Kilu Cherev Menachas Lo Bein Yirei Chosav V'Gehenim Sucha Lo Mitachtav. Dayan, a judge, should always see himself as if there is a sword that is between his legs, and that purgatory is open underneath him. In other words, there should be a great deal of we'll say fear, trepidation, certainly concern that the law comes out correct with all of these motivations in place. The sword between your legs and the gates of purgatory open. Shneimar Hinei mitaso shel Shlomo shishim giborim sovivla megibor Yisrael mepachad balelas. The pachad shel Gehenim, the pasuk that we just read of Hinei mitaso shel Shlomo, the mitaso is a reference to the Beis HaMikdash, in which the high court sat in the Lishkas HaGozis. So there's a reference here to a court situation, and the warriors featured in the pasuk are the judges, and they are to be mi pachad balelos, mi pachad shel gehenim shedom elayla. Balelos is a reference to to purgatory, which is compared to the darkness of night. Rabban Gamliel Omer im miyano v'chulei, and he went on to say v'im lav tamtim mat shetagdil v'teitze alazu mishum achos isha. The case we saw in the Mishnah involving the man who survived his brother while being himself married to a minor, and there is a widow that is a Yevamos because his brother died, but that widow is an adult. So we saw that if the minor does miyun, then fine. If not, she waits until she becomes an adult, and the widow who is an adult goes out, is free because she is an achos isha. Before continuing on in the Gemara, we glance at the side under the nosei, the topic heading, Hesber l'shitas Rav Gamliel Sha'amar. We're going to explain Rav Gamliel that had said, Kishetagdil zu teitzi avimto bevelo klum. When the minor who opted to stay with the husband and not do the miyun, when she becomes an adult, so the widow who was a gedola goes free without anything. There will be another marking. You'll notice a trapezoid or volcano shape that appears, that will be a ma'akav, an attempt to keep track of a back and forth style Gemara, response, then question, response, and then question. So now the Gemara note, by the way, that we open this section with a long question, and you'll see the style as it unfolds. Bo minei Rabbi Ozer me Rav. My taimo de Rabbi Gamliel. What is the basis for Rabban Gamliel? There's a Rashi that we already pointed out. Rabbi Gamliel has said, "Kishetagdil zu teitzi yevimto bevelo klum." What is the reason for that? So the question is presented in the Aleph Oy Dilma. If you skip down 2 lines, you see O Dilma Beis fashion, 2 sides of analysis. Is it Mishum de Kosovar Kiddushay Tano Mitla Tolu, that the Kiddushin that this man had done with the minor is in suspense? V'chi godla bahada, and when she becomes an adult, it grows with her, so to speak. It goes from rabbinic to Torah level. Afalgav delo boal, even without any subsequent intimacy. We glance at the Rashi. Godla bahada v'afalgav delo boal de nikdisha hashta mikol makom mishagodla tafsi kedushin meikara. The original marriage will now take on a Torah level form. Ve'igli milsa mafreya, and then it becomes clear retroactively the zika dahach loy klumhu, that the bond with the adult sister, the yibum bond, was not a bond from the outset because of this element of the retroactive revelation, that the girl who was originally married as a ketana really becomes a full-fledged marriage upon her reaching adulthood, operating retroactively, even without any need for a subsequent act of intimacy. Oy dilma, or possibly mishum de kosovar hamekadesh achois yevama niftara yevama v'holchala. Or, now here, before we can really explain anything further, we must look at Rashi. Oy dilma kiddushin kamoi lo klum ninu. Or, according to this approach, the original kiddushin was nothing. Umishum kiddushin de be'ila de mishigadla nafko hach yevama. But rather, because of intimacy that constitutes an act of kiddushin that he does with her after she reaches adulthood, the widowed sister then leaves. Ve'afagav de zika kodemes l'kiddushin, even though the bond with the older sister, the adult sister who is the widow, preceded the act of marriage, the formal act of marriage with the younger sister. Kosovar, he is of the opinion that hamekadesh achois yevama, one who marries the sister of the woman you're waiting for to do yibum with, niftara yevama. That even though in terms of order of things it might look improper, because first there was the zika, the yibum bond, and only afterwards you went ahead and married her sister. Nevertheless, that marriage works to exempt the yevama. Da'asi kiddushi umevatli lazika. But once again, if you take this approach, the original kiddushin of with the ketana is viewed as nothing. So now let's read this in the Gemara. Oy dilma mishum de kosovar. It could be that Rabbi Gamliel is of the opinion hamekadesh achois yevama, one who marries the sister of a woman that's bound to you as a yevama, niftara yevama v'holchala. The yevama is then exempt, is free to go. However, in order to pursue this analysis, you have to say I boal in, I lo boal lo. If he cohabited with the woman that he originally married as a minor, but we said that marriage was zero, so in order for the yevama to be exempted, the husband of this one would have to cohabit with her, which would be a form of marriage. And if he doesn't do that, so then you won't achieve this exemption for the sister, the widowed sister. That's the question that Rav was asked by Rebbe Ozer. Omar Le, so Rav answers, Hainu taimo de Ramuliel, Mishum de Kosovar. Like the second approach, he's of this opinion because, in other words, according to Ramliel, how is it that the Yevama is Yoitze B'Velo Klum? Because Rabbi Gamliel holds Mekadesh Achos Yevama Niftara Yevama V'Holchala. When one marries the sister of a Yevama, that will exempt the Yevama and she goes free. I boal in, I lo boal lo. If there in fact is an act of kiddushin with the sister, then the older Yevamo will go free. But if not, if Boal, if he doesn't have intimacy with with his wife, then the Yevamo will not be exempted, because you don't have an act of Kiddushin taking place. And as we said before, simply relying on the fact that they had already been married while she was a Ketana, that is of no value in this case. Omar Rav Sheshes, Amino ki nayim v'shochiv Rav Omar lohosh maitza. I think that when Rav said what he did, he was dozing off. Nayim v'shochiv means he was drowsy. Tesanya, hamekadesh es haktana kiddusha tluyin. We have a Tanaic source that says that one who marries a minor, the Kiddushin is in the balance. My tluyin, what does that mean? Lav, doesn't it mean ki godla, gadli bahadov, yafagav the low boil? That it means that it's in suspense, it's waiting for her to become an adult. And when she becomes an adult, the marriage becomes a full-fledged marriage, even without a subsequent act of intimacy. Now, we have to respond to that. Omar lei Rovin Braid Rav Nachman Ha Milsa Diktana Mitla Talia V'Kaima. When we speak about the marriage of the Ketana being suspended, it means as follows: I Boal in, I lo Boal lo. Only if the husband has a subsequent act of intimacy with her after she becomes a Gedola, then we say that she is married. If not, then not. Di Omra, hu adif minoi, v'ano adifno minei. She figures, he is stronger than me. Hu adif minoi means he can get rid of me with a get against my will. And I am stronger than he in that I can be mimayin against his will. So that up till the point of adulthood, the Ketana has this approach. She's, like we could say, on equal footing with the husband, and therefore, in order to establish a full-fledged marriage, you'll have to have an act of bia after she becomes a gedola. And so that's what mitla talia v'kaima meant. It was in suspense because it's not clear what is going to happen. Is he going to divorce me, or am I going to be mima'enes to him? Question: V'sova Rav I bo'ali and I lo bo'alo. Does Rav really hold like that? That only if there is bia will that establish a marriage between this couple, and if not, then no. A Tana who remained married without having done miyun, and she becomes an adult, and v'omda v'nises, she gets up and then marries a second man. Rav Omar Einot Tzricha Get Misheni. Rav says she doesn't need a divorce document from the second man. She doesn't need anything. In other words, the assumption being that the marriage is one big zero, that her marriage to the first fellow is a complete marriage. Ushmul Omar Tzricha Get Misheni. Shmuel says that she does need a get from the second man. My lav de lo boal. Rav, in saying this, Eino Tzricha Get Misheni, is it not so that when she went ahead and married a second man, it was a case where she had not done. It's even a case where she had not done bia with the first husband. So if we go over that, the second to last line on Omen Aleph, it described the Ketana Shelo Miyano Vigdila. She had not done min. She became an adult, and at that point she became an adult without having done bia with that man. She went ahead and married a second man. Rav says she doesn't need a get from the second one. Why? Because the marriage to the first one was a full-fledged marriage. What business is a second man marrying an Eishes Isha, married woman? So what do we see from here? That Rav, in the eyes of Rav, in order to concretize a marriage, it's enough that she simply reaches adulthood, even without this subsequent act of cohabitation after that point. No, that's not the case. The Boal. We're here at the top of Daf Kuf Yud Amud Aleph, and you see that as far as the case Rav was talking about, it could very well be that in order to establish the marriage to the first man in a full sense, she would have had to cohabit with him after reaching adulthood. Well then, de Boal, if that's the case that Rav and Shmuel were arguing about, that she had bia with the original husband, my time of the Shmuel, why would Shmuel say that when she goes ahead and marries a second man, she'll need a get from the second man? The second man was marrying a married woman. It's a zero. It's a zero. It might be a big sin, but as far as matrimony is concerned, it's nothing. Why should the second man have to give her a divorce document? Kosovar, Shmuel holds, Kol haboyel aldas kiddushin harishonim hu boel. Though there was bia, the bia was done on the basis of the original kiddushin. Now, the original kiddushin was kiddush tana, was a kiddushin done with a minor, and that doesn't have a Torah level strength to it. So that even though there was bia, if you're going to ask why does Shmuel say that the marriage to the second fellow takes hold, because the bia, the intimacy that was conducted between the woman and her first husband, though it was done after reaching adulthood, but it was done on the grounds of the original kiddushin. The Gemara asks, you'll notice it's a long question. Well, v'ha pligi bo chado zimna. With regard to the bia done on the grounds or on the basis of an original kiddushin, that is a point over which Rav and Shmuel argued in the past. And the basic question is, if they've already argued over that, why do you have to have that stated over here a second time? So the Gemara asks, an original kiddushin. The kiddushin is the act of a man giving money or money equivalent to a woman in anticipation of marrying her. So the kiddushin was done in this case on condition. And let us say it was done on condition that she has no vows or she has no blemishes. V'konsa stam. And then they went, they reached Nisuin, they went to the marriage canopy and had intimacy with her without restating the condition. And after the knisa, after the consummation of the marriage, it turns out she in fact has vows upon her. So this is a woman that had taken vows. Rav Omar tzricho heimenu get. Rav says she cannot just walk out, she needs a get. Ushmuel Omar eino tzricho heimenu get. Shmuel says she can walk out, she doesn't need a get. There was a violation of the conditions. Or better yet, there was a lack of fulfillment of the conditions. Rav Omar tzricho heimenu get. Rav holds that she'll need a get from this man. Kevon de Nasva, since he had gone all the way to consummate the marriage, achuli achle l'tnoi, that is the equivalent of his foregoing of those original conditions. Ushmuel Omar einat tzricha himenu get. Shmuel says no, there's no need for a divorce document. Kol haboyel, when a person engages in intimacy, which in this case was the consummation of the marriage, al das kiddushin rishonim uboyel, he does so with the intent of completing the original kiddushin. Now, the original kiddushin was based on a tanai, was with this stipulation that she should not have vows or not have blemishes. And when he is boil her now, when he has intimacy with her at this point, he's doing so with that in mind. And being that those conditions were not met, she's not married. But what do we see? The main point, without getting too involved with the details, we see that Shmuel holds Kalabil Adas Kiddushin Harishan Boil. So that in presenting the machloikis where Rav and Shmuel, who appeared at the bottom of Kuf Tesamid Beis, as arguing over this point, namely there was biyah after the woman had reached adulthood. The biyah in question, does that concretize the marriage to the extent that a second man cannot marry her? Well, according to Shmuel, in that case, it didn't concretize the marriage because the original marriage was a minor marriage. And Shmuel says, the biyah that she did after reaching adulthood was based on those original kiddushin. So we see this principle, the point of machlokes between Rav and Shmuel over here in regarding this the case we just saw at the top of Kuf Yud Amud Aleph. So if we have them having argued over that in the past, why is it necessary for them to argue over that over here? The Gemara answers, it really is necessary to have this argument stated again. And the Gemara answers, you notice we have a long marking, we also have a sricha. There's a point in the Rashi, and we're going to learn the Gemara using the Girsa of Rashi. You may notice we have a double star in the Rashi to the upper part of the narrow lines, so that we have to understand once again why is it necessary to have the argument between Rav and Shmuel in these two cases regarding Kol HaBoil Aldas Kiddushin Mishonim Uboil or not. So now the Rashi. We're using the Rashi in place of the Gemara. You can see in the Gemara we have a brackets indicating the section that we will skip in terms of Gemara and replace it with that which you see in the Rashi, and then pick up with the Gemara after the brackets. So now we turn to the Rashi. The Itmar Baha Gabi Tana Shalomiano. I had Rav and Shmuel arguing over in the case of the Tana that had not done miyun and reached adulthood and then had biyah with her husband now as an adult. Rav, in this case, Rav says his din that the biyah is not aldas kiddushin harishonim. The asik adaite, it occurs to him livol l'shem kiddushin mishagadla, that the intimacy I'm going to have with her now after she becomes an adult, this is the formal kiddushin, the formal marriage. Mishum delekotano, there's no issue here of conditions. Ein psul kiddushin harishonim mishum tanai, the lack of strength to the original kiddushin isn't because of a condition, a stipulation, elo mishum katnus, it was because of minority status. The Adam Yodeya She'en Kiddushin Harishonim Klum. People know that the Kiddushin done with a minor is a zero. The Chazar Uboal L'Shem Kiddushin. Then when he has the intimacy after she becomes an adult, that is clear in his mind, says Rav, that is a formal Kiddushin. Aval Behahi, the case of a marriage that was based on a stipulation, and then the consummation, the intimacy done without a repeat of the Tanai. In that case, the Iko Tanai, where there was a condition, Emo Moide L'Shmuel Vadaita de Tanai Bo'il Kasavur She'ein Olel Nidar V'Kaimo Tanai Shebeneim. In such a case where the original Kiddushin was done based on a stipulation, maybe Rav agrees with Shmuel that there the biyah done, the consummation of the marriage, was on the basis of the original Kiddushin that was with stipulation. So had I presented Shitas Rav that a person is not boyal aldas kiddushin rishonim only in the case of the minor that had not done miyun, I wouldn't know that Rav would adopt the same stance in the case of a kiddushin that was done with a stipulation. Let's go back now to the Gemara text after the brackets. V'itmar baha, and I had only this case, the case of the Tanai, Behach Komar Shmuel. There Shmuel says that Kol HaBoil Das Kiddush Rishon Boil Avol Behach Emo Model Shmuel. But in the case of the marriage with the Ktana that was not Mimayanis, maybe he would agree with Rav that the Bia done after she becomes an adult is the new Kiddushin, and it's not based on the original. Sricha, there I have to tell that even in that case, Shmuel will hold that the Bia is done al smach on the basis of the original, we'll say meaningless or non-serious form of Kiddushin, the Kiddushay Tana. So up till this point, then we are suggesting that Rav's halacha was stated in a case of Bia having taken place, and this of course throws us back to the beginning of this whole give and take in the Gemara, where we were explaining the reason for Rabbi Gamliel as to why the adult Yevamos goes out free is because the man who was married to the minor there was a need for him to have done Bia after reaching godless, and if that is what took place, so then the Gedola goes out free. Now let's go back. Now let's continue. Umi Omar Rav ki boil in I lo boil lo. Would Rav really have said that only if Bia took place after the minor had become an adult, only then would her sister who was the Yevamos, the Gedola, would go free. But if there was no subsequent Bia after the minor had become an adult, then the adult sister would not go free. Narish is the name of a place. There was a case in that town, the Ikdisha Kshiktana, the Godla. The Kiddushin had taken place with the girl when she was a minor, and she became an adult. The Oisvei Abe Kursaya. She was placed on a Abe Kursaya on a pirion. It's a situation where it's like a chuppah. Rashi says Abe Kursaya. Just Rashi a couple lines up from here. The thinking right now is kishar chuppos shadayin lo boala. This Abe Kursaya is a type of, we'll say, marriage canopy, which is similar to other situations of marriage canopies where Bia has not yet taken place. And even so, when a second guy comes along and marries her from that point, she's not considered married to the second guy whatsoever. And to leave him, she leaves without a get. Alma chalu kiddushi kamoi. So we see that the original kiddushin takes place by simply having reached adulthood without the need for a subsequent act of intimacy. So let's go over the case in the Gemara. The story in Narish where a girl had received kiddushin when she was a minor. She reached adulthood. She went under a marriage canopy. And someone else came and grabbed her from the husband she thought she was marrying. The Rav Bruna of Rav Hananel Talmidei de Rav Havu Hasam. These two scholars, Rav Bruna and Rav Hananel, who were students of Rav, were there. And there was no requirement of a divorce document from that second man who swiped her away and then tried and married her, because the Kiddushay Rishon had taken hold, even without the need for an act of intimacy. So we bring into question the approach taken, suggesting that Rav says that after Gadlus, an act of intimacy is necessary. Omar Rav Papa, Benarish Minsiv Nesivi V'Hodar Moisvi Abe Kursa. In Narish, the practice is that there is first Bia, and then they go to the Bei Kursaya. So you're talking about a case of Kiddushin through Bia after she had become a Gedola. Rav Ashi Omar, a second approach, that's why I have a number 2 over here. And Rashi says, listen, the first guy really, the original husband really was not boil after she became a gedola. Now, if Rav is really of the opinion that without the bia, then as we said before in the original Yevamos case, without the bia, with the girl who just became a gedola, so the older sister would not go free. Well, then why would Rav not require a get from the second man? Because it's mashma that it's mashma from here that without the bia, so the second man's kiddushin takes hold. So Rav Ashi says, Rav Ashi Amar Hu also shalo kahogen, lefikoch osu bo shalo kahogen. This guy who grabbed her from the marriage canopy did something reprehensible. Therefore, we're going to deal with him also in a we'll say straight legal fashion. We're going to treat him also that way. Vafkinu Rabbanan the Kiddushin Minei, and the Rabbanan uprooted whatever Kiddushin the second guy did with her. So we see a form of dealing with him in a measure for measure fashion. He grabbed a woman away from a first fellow, even though the first fellow hadn't done bia, and under those circumstances we're suggesting that the second man's kiddushin would have taken hold. But we come along and say you did something wrong. We're going to annul your kiddushin retroactively. That's afkiinu rabbanan lekiddushin minei. Omar le Ravino le Ravashi Teinach de Kodesh Bekaspo. That is a reasonable procedure or explanation for where the second fellow offered her money. We can declare the money that was given to her as null and void, and the money is viewed as a mere gift, but not as kiddushin money. Kodesh bebi'amai. What about a case where the second fellow did kiddushin with her through an act of intimacy? How do you nullify that? So we answer, Shavu Rabbana lebilasa bilaznus. They can declare that act of intimacy, not an act of marriage, but as an act of harlotry. Omar Rav Yehuda Omar Shmuel halacha kerebi Eliezer. The halacha follows Rabbi Eliezer that in the case of a surviving brother married to the sister of the Yevamos who is a ketana, we train her, we teach her to do miyun. And if she does miyun, then the surviving brother can marry the adult sister of the girl who was originally his wife. V'chein Omer Rabbi Ozer halacha kerebi Eliezer, and not only Shmuel but Rabbi Ozer the Amora also says that the halacha follows Rabbi Eliezer.